Ed Brown, ex-real estate agent, co-founder of Smarthouse Australia, probably the busiest man in real estate at the moment. It's fair to say. We all sat back and we obviously communicated well and truly across this board, and we knew there was going to be a massive sugar rush. We could call to this, but we never knew when it was going to happen. Right. Now, Ed, Smarthouse, great partners of O'Brien Real Estate, been there for a long period of time. Also recognised by the Real Estate Institute of Victoria as the preferred supplier in this space. So congratulations on that. And I think that is also an endorsement within itself. So well done.
Thank you.
Ed, do you want to take us through, what is these safety checks required? Because, a simple check of a plumber going to say this is okay is not okay.
No, that's correct. That's correct. I think probably the most important thing to look at here is there are three changes that have been made or now made mandatory. First and foremost, smoke alarm checks. They need to be conducted within every property. Secondly, electrical safety checks of the property itself. And thirdly, a gas plumbing safety check within the property. So they're all mandatory. They all need to be done. Smoke alarm checks need to be done every year. The other two services, the electrical and the gas plumbing, once every 2 years. And they need to be done by certified and qualified plumbers and electricians. Can't be using apprentices in those spaces at this stage.
Yeah. And some of the things we talked about, you and I have actually spoken about, even a simple stove, a gas hot plate stove. You guys went out and did a check for us, and one of the things that didn't come back, the ignition switch, the typical thing that you push down to start that thing. And for a lot of people who think that's just a simple thing, don't worry about it, but that's not a simple thing anymore.
No, it's not. It's now made mandatory. They all need to be in operational and working order. My personal opinion, the reasoning behind that is purely and simply to stop gas explosions. Not that we've seen a lot of them obviously happening, but it's to prevent that. And make it sort of fail-safe moving forward. So there's a few areas, especially within the gas plumbing side, that need to be considered. So carbon monoxide checks as well with heaters to make sure that they're not leaking carbon monoxide, making sure all the installations are safe, both electrically and also with fixtures and fittings to the whether it's the ground or the wall, etc. And making sure that all the gas lines are correct, operational, aren't leaking, etc., etc.
Let's talk about carbon monoxide. It's obviously what they call the silent killer, isn't it?
Definitely.
And when you go out and do these checks and they're not actually up to safety, what do you do?
Well, we do them first and foremost on heaters.
Yep.
And if they are not up to scratch by way of leaking even 1 part per million of carbon monoxide, they're what we deem as unsafe, and they're capped off. So what that basically means is that the connection to the heater itself is physically capped off, so the heater can't be used. And then obviously property managers and then residential rental providers now, not landlords, are obviously then notified of that, and whatever course is needed to physically fix that issue with the heater at that point in time.
Because that's an important thing, because I know that we've, again, under your guidance and everything, we've sent some people out and our landlords have got a little bit upset over that. And I get to understand, I'm a landlord myself, so I can understand that you weren't ready for that and all that. But it's very important to have a clear understanding that the outcome of the opposite is a lot worse.
Yeah, that's right. No, I think, just briefly, a lot of people can remember the two boys in Mooroopna up near Shepparton that died back in, I think it was May 2010 from carbon monoxide poisoning. So that's obviously an extreme. But we obviously want to be able to make sure that these properties are safe. That was the whole intention behind these 132 reforms that have come in. So if we can make sure that these appliances are working and operating correctly, that's the best outcome. 9 times out of 10, we can generally fix issues that we do find with carbon monoxide leakage, but there is that odd circumstance where heaters do need to be capped off.
And I don't know if you're ready for this question, Ed, but the number of inspections that you've had to be doing over the last since the new RTA came, what is the volume that's out there at the moment?
As of September last year, so the reforms came in March 28, 29 of this year. Statistics of properties or active bonds since September last year, 628,000 active bonds, approximately 570,000, 580,000 rental properties in circulation. So those properties need to be all inspected, checked, ticked off by March 28, 2023 in relation to these services. So there's a lot out there. We're doing thousands a week at the moment, thousands and thousands a week at the moment. But it's just a requirement, it's just a need that has to be done. So keeping us very busy.
Yeah, and For our rental providers out there, and I know they might be scared of this, this number, how many actually pass clearly and how many actually need attention to?
Look, it's a really good question. Unfortunately, the pass rate isn't as high as what we would like it to be. I guess one of the things that we are finding is it's only minor issues that we're coming across that need sort of updates and changes. We do obviously find properties where it may be a switchboard, it may be wiring, it may be a new heater, maybe the bigger ticket items. But that just comes with the age of a lot of these properties that are out there as well. So look, generally off the bat, it's about 40% that do pass.
Yep.
For the plumbing side of things, and it's about 45% for the electrical side of things that pass. So unfortunately, it's not a huge volume, but the fixes are quite easy to get a lot of these properties up to spec. But yeah, the electrical side is a side we're actually finding a lot of properties that need little things like power points, light switches, etc., minor fixes to bring the properties up to scratch.
One of the things that I've noticed is with speaking to a lot of our rental providers is, does it have to happen straight away?
It's a really good question.
This is the question, this is the burning question. They hear this, oh, these changes straight away, I've got to get it done, and they start to get a little bit build up of pressure and saying, oh, what do I have to do, what do I do? You just mentioned 2023.
Correct.
So do you want to explain a little bit, when do they need to get it done?
Sure.
And
And the requirements.
And the requirements.
Yeah, sure. It's a really good question. It does partially come back to the lease terms that are associated with the property. So tenants do now have, I guess, a right in this space. So if they've entered into a lease agreement after the 29th of March, the new minimum standards now apply within that lease. So they have the right to ask for when the last inspection dates were carried out. If they haven't been carried out at the property, they need to be then classified as urgent maintenance and attended to ASAP. In the event that there are issues that are found at the property, such as, let's use the electrical service side of things, such as a switchboard, if that needs to be replaced, that needs to be replaced by 28th of March 2023. We don't need to actually physically have these checks unless it's enforced on us by tenants until that time frame. However, we also need to look at what if the property actually has issues as well. So if it does need a switchboard, if it does need a heater, etc., we need to consider a potential savings or a plan to put in place to be able to get it rectified within that time frame. Unless it's an emergency works, it doesn't need to be completed tomorrow. However, if it is emergency works, it then falls under the emergency works category of the RTA itself.
Harry, obviously you're dealing with a lot of rental providers and tenants on that. What's your recommendation when, as Ed just explained to us, that when you've got a new lease coming up, get ahead of the game?
That's right. I think as soon as we get a notice from a renter that they're going to be moving out, I'd be suggesting booking in those checks straight away, because I mean, Smarthouse are backed up so much. We need to get ahead of the game, book it in as quickly as we can, so that we get those checks done for when we find a new renter and they move in.
And we use Smarthouse, and the reason why is because we feel safe with them. Is that right?
That's correct. The communication is great. The reports we get back are clear and precise, and they really explain what has failed and what the fix needs to be to get it done, to get it up to scratch.
Ed just said, look, 40% is not a great pass rate. Your experience of, what are some of the ticket items that you might come back?
Yeah, I've had a couple of fuse boards, main boards at the front, where the gap between the fuse and the board itself is too big.
Correct.
Which then creates a backflow to allow fire to get back to the property.
That's right.
So that was a new one for me. But like we've said, we've had a lot of face plates for light switches and power points, which Smarthouse will more often than not fix on the spot if it's only one of them, so that we do get a pass straight away, which is great. Yeah.
Any of those minor items, they're generally covered in the cost of the service fee anyway, so we'll do them then and there, so we can walk out with a pass for that property. And I think one of the other things to take into consideration here is these aren't compliance checks, they're safety checks. So I think one of the things I've definitely seen from the residential rental provider demographic is I think we're complying to something. We're actually flowing in accordance with Australian standards that have been set by Consumer Affairs. And those standards provide documentation and certain reports that need to be carried out as well at the property. So
tonight, all our rental providers, it's a brief introduction of what we're doing behind the scenes with the Residential Tenancy Act changes. And the clear understanding is for us, as we've looked at it, Paul, and we touched on before, is that there is 132, but they're to better both parties, to make both safer place, comfortable place to live, and so rental providers can sleep at night, knowing that what they're providing to their renter is a safe place for them and their family. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of families that live in those rental properties, and it's our obligation to make sure it's the best.
Definitely.
Ed, thanks for taking the time out tonight, and I really do. I know it's late evening for us and all of that, and I know you've got a journey ahead of you, so thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And as I said to all the guys, if you need to know more about that, feel free, reach out to your property manager. Ed's educating, he's got a great team behind it, he's got a great support base behind it, and every one of our property managers are really well educated in this, thanks to Smarthouse. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.